physicians that come to approach me where they're struggling, they've kind of maxed out, if you will, because they don't understand the importance of growing, running a business, putting in systems and policies and building a culture. They end up managing it themselves, and they're focused on the revenue. And what, they don't think of as, what they've really done is just created a job for themselves. They have not created a business. And of course, as you know, a job is not worth anything. Right. And that's why a lot of private equity is not interested in physician practices, because they're too dependent on egos and all this other stuff. So it was around that time frame that I started to, I had some friends who were CEOs of publicly traded companies and watched the way they conducted themselves and the people they surrounded themselves with. And I started to emulate that and say, okay, well, if this guy who runs $1 billion company can be home at 6 o'clock at night, and it doesn't mean that we're not working on our mind and we're not maybe checking some emails after the kids go to bed, but I started to think about how do I grow the business and grow the profitability, and how do I build a team? And it's a very different mindset than most of us have who are solo practitioners. We're only as good as the revenue we're generating, and we tend to focus too much on that. How much I brought in last year, and what you don't realize, no, it's how much your team brought in. So that was kind of a learning point for me. And, based on, I don't want to say my failures. I mean, I was doing great. But I was working too hard. But this is what we learn in residency, especially the surgical residency. We just learned that, okay, well, I'm going to work harder. And even to this day, one of my partners who has equity in certain businesses will say to me, he gets a little worked up when he has a slow day or something. And I'm like, you're missing the point. You're totally missing the point. It's not just about the revenue you're generating. Or can't take time off. I run into colleagues of mine who don't want to get to meetings. I don't know how you do all these meetings. The work gets done, and we tend to focus on the wrong thing. So that was kind of kind of an inflection point. Then on top of that, we're kind of sheltered from business and finance. In fact, it's almost taboo to even talk about money, and no one talks to doctors about it at all. And no one talks to them about finance. And that's why you see so many physicians who get to the retirement age and can't really, I don't say can't afford to retire, but it's hard for them to maintain their lifestyle. And many of them end up working beyond, because no one really had this discussion. How do you acquire wealth over time? What they focus on is their income. And they were told that, if you get out, you should make, X, and they expect it to be X plus 5 or 10% for the next 30 years. And so they don't set themselves up like the small businessman who's a scrapper who knows that a recession may be coming. I think that as we go through our training, we have this delayed gratification. We're told we're going to make, 253, 4, whatever the number is. And then we have these expectations for a lifestyle. The problem with that is it puts us in a situation we're not in a position or willing to take risk, because we live into this lifestyle, and that is why. And I know this too, just from mentoring a lot of my young colleagues. They say, well, I want to jump out on my own, but I'm making X, and so let's go through your expenses, and you find they got 2 car payments, they get this, and they get the kids in the private school, all of which I've done, but starting out, we as physicians don't take, physicians you'll find are fairly risk averse to begin with. And this is another interesting conversation, because if you take a look at our friends in business, they say, you guys don't take risk at all. I say, well, yeah, I do. I have patients bleeding on me. No. There's a big, big difference. So I think that part of our training sets us up to fail as entrepreneurs or as business people. You can go to the biggest meetings that we have, talk to the docs out in the hall, and their biggest frustrations are their staff, right? I love my team. I get jacked up when we hire another rock star. And it's a whole different mindset because we view them as liabilities, expenses, but no one's ever really taught us. And so, for key positions that we have here, we may be 6, 8, 9 months to hire those people. But it's how do docs, and this is another thing, part of our training. Okay, so you're a surgeon, you have a problem, you want to fix it, right? Okay, I need a patient care coordinator, or I need a nurse injector, right? I hear this comes all the time to me. I need a nurse injector. You have you run an ad, whatever, you interview a few people, they seem nice, whatever, you hear good things about them, and then how are you going to solve your problem? You don't want to wait, you don't want to take a lot of time on that because that's beneath you, right? I'd rather be doing surgery. I got Botox patients to inject down here. So you hire this person based on a 30-minute conversation, they seem nice, they come from a nice family, and then 6 months later, you're dealing with dysfunction. This is so common in physician practices. What we do is we are fanatical about who we hire. And we're going to go through this whole process. But, it's part of how we're trained. We have a problem, we want to fix it. We want to hire a patient care coordinator. And, many of us, especially people that have a little bit of an entrepreneurial spirit, they tend to be optimistic, right? This is going to be great, and then they have a bad hire. And then they're there, till 6:30 at night. It's not 5 o'clock at night. They don't trust their team, but now they have someone leave, so they got to go hire another person. And Jack Welch used to say that you should have 10% turnover. If you don't turnover, you're not having tough conversations with people. But when you take a look, and some of my colleagues, and they got all kinds of turnover in the practice, and they say to me, I don't know how, there must be something in the water in Albany because I don't know how you have all these amazing people. I've been to your place because I can't stand, I just have, a bunch of duds. And what they don't do is they're not looking up at themselves and saying, I'm just a shitty leader. But a lot of times they just don't have the education and the training. So I think part of our training sets us up for this stuff. We're not trained. We figure we're smart. We can figure it out. You know what? Most physicians are smart, and they can figure it out if they get the right training. So again, so one of the things I wanted to just really set the stage is that the physicians can figure this out. But it's a whole different mindset that leads us to why our training, where our training puts us. One of the things I want to start out with next month is, the first one is, just acquisition of wealth and personal finance. That really sets the stage. And I'm also going to give people at the end of every podcast a little homework to do. Another is, developing the business person within. A lot of physicians have never been taught or trained in the area of business. The ABCs of developing multiple profit centers. I get asked about this all the time. How do you open another business? How do you start something? Lessons to learn from a 20-year experience of running a surgery center, adding associates or partners. How do you build a practice that will attract private equity? We've had that experience. And, people are very curious about this. The anatomy of an acquisition. How do you buy another practice? And one thing that's very important to me is charitable giving. And I don't like the word giving back. I think it's really important, and we do this with our kids, to teach people how to give of their time and their money. And it's not just resources, it's time. I hear this all the time from our young colleagues. I know you've done all this with the academy and you continue to teach and do that. And let's face it, that's giving, but somebody gave them that. So we have a bunch of topics we're going to talk about, and that's kind of kicking it off. But I like I said, this is really about learning from my struggles and failures over the many, many years. I've lost sleep over things and lost money on things. And I'm just hoping that based on my failures, we're going to be able to teach people a lot of stuff.